Welcome, folks. Rambam. We continue with the laws of the Holy Temple. We're doing the laws of Bias Mikdash. How you enter, how can you, when you enter into the sanctuary of God. Okay, let's get right into it. Chapter 2. The high priest, which is called Kohen Gadol in Hebrew, enters the Kodesh Kadoshim, the Holy of Holies, each year only on Yom Kippur. An ordinary priest, Kohen, may enter the sanctuary for service every day. Every day. Not the Holy of Holies. He can never go in the Holy of Holies, right? The Kohanim were all warned not to enter the sanctuary or the Holy of Holies when they are not in the midst of the service. So no strolling around there, right? You can only go when you have to do the service of God. Okay. Right. Or gazing, coming to gaze and see, watch the sights. We in North America, North Americans, there used to be an ad in Canada that people, shouldn't watch sports. They should engage in sports. In other words, participation, it was called, if you remember. Participate. So if you're doing the service, you're participating, but you're just looking on, you're watching the game. Not allowed to. Right? As the verse says in Leviticus, you shall not come to the holy chamber at all times. This refers to the Holy of Holies within the curtain. This warns the Kohen against unwarranted entry into the entire temple. So anytime, anywhere, just, if it's not part of the service. Number 3, a Kohen, whether an ordinary Kohen or a Kohen Gadol high priest, who enters the Holy of Holies on any of the other days of the year, or a Kohen Gadol who enters even on Yom Kippur outside of the time of service, he's liable for the death at the hands of heaven, and he shall not die. Right from there, it means if you won't go in, you won't die. If you do go in, it means you will die by the hands of heaven, not by a court of law down here. How many times does he enter on Yom Kippur? 4. As will be explained in the appropriate place. If he enters in the 5th time, he is liable for death at the hand of heaven. Right? We just learned the verse in Chumash, right? Don't add to the mitzvahs. You might say, Yom Kippur, Kohen Gadol, a holy man. I want to have an extra holy experience to be there with God. Death. Don't add. Right. 1, whether an ordinary Kohen or a Kohen Gadol who enters the sacred chamber outside of the Holy of Holies, not for the sake of service, nor prostrating oneself, is liable for lashes, but not liable for death. This is derived from the above verse, which states, before the covering that is upon the ark, so that he will not die. Implied is that for an unauthorized entry into the Holy of Holies, he is liable for death by the hands of heaven, but entering into the remainder of the sanctuary, meaning where the menorah is, right, where the table of showbread or the golden altar, those in the holies, you're not liable there, right? Huh?
Ladies. Don't they protect somebody from going in there?
Yes and no. No, because they're not there. No, they guard on other places,
Okay.
not there. No. But entering the sanctuary is merely a violation of negative commandment, and it's punishable by lashes. A kohen, whether an ordinary kohen or a high priest, a kohen gadol, who departs from the temple is liable for death at the hand of heaven only in the midst of service. In other words, you're in the middle, you're bringing an offering, right? You're bringing the incense, the golden altar inside, or whatever it is, right? And all of a sudden, let me take a break. Let me go check the news on my phone, right? So he's liable for, right? As the verse says, the entrance of the tent of meeting shall not depart lest you die. Implied is that he should not abandon the service and leave hastily and then in a panic because of this decree. Similarly, the charge issued to the Kohen Gadol, he shall not depart from the temple, applies only in the midst of service, that he should not abandon his service and depart. Right? It only means when you're doing the service of God. Right? If so, why is the warning repeated to the Kohen Gadol? If so, yeah, because there is a difference between the laws that apply to him and those which apply to an ordinary kohen. When an ordinary kohen was in the midst of his service in the temple, and he heard that a person for whom he is obligated to mourn has died, he should not perform sacrificial service, even though he does not leave the temple, because he is in acute state of mourning. If he performed the service while in an acute state of mourning, right, person just passed away in the first day, that's right, he profanes his service, whether he's offering an individual sacrifice or communal offering. That's a regular kohen, right? He just found out one of the 7 close relatives, father, mother, brother, sister, wife, son, daughter, right? The 7 close relatives, right? One of them passed away. So he's in acute state of mourning. He's not allowed to finish the service. That's what the Torah says, right? It profanes the service. Kohen Gadol, by contrast, performs sacrificial service while he's in a state of acute mourning, as implied by the verse, from the temple he should not depart, not profane. Implied is that he should remain in the temple to perform the service with which he was involved, and he does not become profane. Now, he was already in the midst of doing the service we're talking about, right? So he finishes off. The Kohen Gadol has a higher holiness, and therefore the holiness of his divine service takes priority that he finishes it off. What is the source that teaches us that the service of one of the acute state of mourning is invalid? It is derived from the inference from a less severe situation to a more severe one. It's called the Kal V'chomer. A priest, a kohen, disqualified because of a physical deformity, may partake of sacrificial foods. Nevertheless, if he performs service, he profanes it. How much more so should one who is in acute mourning and thus forbidden to partake in sacrificial foods? I did not eat in the state of acute mourning, profane his service if he performs it. Right, that's called Kal V'chomer. Because in this state, he's not allowed to eat, right? No, holy foods, holy foods. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Although a Kohen Gadol may perform service while he is in a state of acute mourning, he is forbidden to partake of sacrificial foods. As it says, if I had partaken of the sin offering today, would it not found favor in God's eyes? But Aaron, because he was mourning for his 2 sons that passed away in the sanctuary when they inaugurated the sanctuary, and he didn't partake of the offering. So in other words, he finished the sacrifice, but he didn't eat from it. Similarly, he does not participate in the division of sacrificial food so that he could partake of the food in the evening. Sacrificial, like the offerings on the altar, that the kohen gets a part of it.
Okay.
Right? When a person is in an acute state of mourning before him sacrificial service, he is not right. Again, remember, acute state of mourning is that day. It's not that following night or the following day. Biblically, we're talking about. Rabbinically, we sit Shiva 7 days, right? We sit for 7 days when someone passes, but that's a rabbinic law. Biblical law is the day of passing, the day of burial. The day of passing is the day of burial, and it's till the end, till nightfall of that day. That's biblical. Okay. Again, we mourn for 7 days. Rabbinical, exactly. So when a person is in acute state of mourning, performs sacrificial service, he's not liable for lashes. He is permitted to touch sacrificial foods, even though he did not immerse himself in the mikvah. For this safeguard was enforced only with regard to eating. And to only eating he wasn't able to do. With regard to touching objects, he's considered as pure, as we explained, in the appropriate place. Because remember, when do you get impurity? When you come in contact with a corpse or a dead animal or something, whatever, something that is impure. But just being in an acute state of mourning, that's not impurity in and of itself, right? Your loved one passed away, right? That's not a state of impurity. There, however, you're not allowed to eat the food, but you could touch it because you're not, you're considered pure. Okay, now he's giving the definition. What is it meant by a person who's in an acute state of mourning? One who lost one of his relatives for whom he's required to mourn, the seven I told you. On the day of the person's death, he's considered an acute state of, according to scriptural law, and at night he is acute mourning according to rabbinic law. No, I get. You know what? I'm sorry. I was not precise in my words. The term in Hebrew is called oinain. Oinain, acute state of mourning, as opposed to shiva, is a different law. So biblical law, oinain is during that day. Rabbinic law, you're an oinain by night also. And then after that, you will have the rest of Shiva, the 7 days. Let's see if he's going to speak about, okay? When it is necessary to wait several days and only afterwards a corpse was buried, for all those days after the day of the deceased passing, his relative is considered an acute state of mourning according to rabbinic law, right? This also applies in regard to the day of burial, but not the following night, right? See, so sometimes you can't bury right away. So you are no longer biblical state of mourning if you bury the following day, but rabbinical state of mourning, acute mourning. Again, it's acute mourning as opposed to mourning. Okay. Shiva is mourning. An oinain, aninus is acute state. Therefore, if a close relative of a kohen dies and he buries him after the day of his death, throughout the day of the burial, he may not offer, partake sacrifices according to rabbinic law. No, kohen, regular kohen.
Red coin can go bury a relative?
Yes,
Can go into the cemetery?
yes, for the 7 relatives.
Okay.
Kohen gadol can't, but a kohen could.
But he's not secure.
Huh?
But he's not secure.
Yes. I mean, potentially, yes.
Okay.
He should then immerse himself and partake of sacrifices at night. The day on which a person hears a report of a relative of his died within 30 days, and the day that he gathers his bones is considered the day of one's burial. But the restrictions do not apply at night, right? Because it only applies a day for the rabbinic law. On the day of his close relative's death, by contrast, just as forbidden to partake of sacrificial foods is according to scriptural law, so too is forbidden to partake of them at night according to rabbinic law. The only exception is a paschal sacrifice, which you may eat at night, so we explain an appropriate place. Okay. Throughout the 7 days of mourning, now we're calling mourning, not acute state of mourning, right? Oval. So there's aninus, oinain, and avelus. Okay, so throughout the 7 days of mourning, a mourner should not send sacrifice to be offered in the temple. Indeed, he should not send even wine, wood, or frankincense. Similar, a person afflicted with saras should not send a sacrifice to be offered in the temple, for as long as he is not fit to enter the camp of the Levites, he is not fit to sacrifice sacrifices to be offered. there's an unresolved question whether a person under a ban of ostracism may send sacrifices to be offered or not. Hence, if they were offered on his behalf, the obligation is satisfied. Uh-huh. Okay.
Okay,
Halacha 12.
Here's where they use, the place where they protect, okay.
Yeah. Number 12, a person who is impure because of contact with a dead lizard or the like, or an uncircumcised person may send their sacrifices. So as you're in contact with I don't know why a lizard particularly, or the like, it says, okay, or non-circumcised may send sacrifice, and they're offered the exception of paschal sacrifice, because that you have to be circumcised for. Sacrifice may not be offered by a person who is impure because of contact with a dead lizard, nor may the paschal sacrifice be offered for an uncircumcised person, as will be explained. No sacrifices at all are offered for a person who is impure because of contact with the corpse until he becomes ritually pure. Right. Even on your behalf, you can't do it because you couldn't be there. So even through an emissary for you, you can't do it. Okay. Thank you, folks. Have an amazing, great day.